Thank you so much for having me. And just a little bit of background. My name is Yaliwe Soko, and I'm joining in from Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm the current South African ecosystems lead at C Labs, working on the Seller platform. And I also chair the United Africa Blockchain Association. So thank you for inviting me once again. So today I'll just be giving a little bit of a talk on the importance of education, or blockchain education in Africa, right? And I particularly chose this topic because we speak a lot about different things. We speak a lot about different types of innovation, but the most important factor that I believe in Africa is education. And I'll tell you why I normally say education is the most important thing. It's because there's a certain system in which the educational system in Africa has been set up. And there's certain things that are actually perceived to be important subjects. For example, where I come from, the most important careers are, the normal careers. You have to be a doctor, you have to be either a lawyer, or there's certain careers that have been actually been put in place or been embedded in people's mindsets as the types of careers to follow. So we need to actually set a pace in terms of education. I'm actually a huge driver of that. Actually, Stellar Foundation, in partnership with United Africa Blockchain Association, currently ran a program to educate Africans on blockchain. And if you come to think of that, the response was overwhelming. And if you can see people responding to that call, it shows you that there's actually a need for education in this space. There were over 1,000 registrations from over 20 African countries. That shows that there is a hunger for people to be educated. And I believe once we achieve this, so firstly, I'll say, once we start with the basics, right? Let's start with the basics. Let's teach them what is blockchain. Let's tell them what difference can blockchain bring about to the continent. And also another thing that I would very much like to focus on is also it would inspire a lot of African young people to come up with tailor-made solutions to African problems, right? I've come to realize that if you look at Africa in this context, Africa is not a country, it's a continent. It's a continent that has over 50 countries. And each of these countries, as much as we do have common problems in Africa, we have a whole lot of different problems looking at where we're coming from. I would say, Iman, for example, you are from the northern part of Africa. There are certain problems that we might not be facing in the southern part of Africa that people within your communities, once they've been educated, once they've been given this information, and once they've been given a platform to actually innovate and to actually go back and say, look, this is where I am, and this is what I believe blockchain can do for my community. This is the change that I believe blockchain can actually bring to my community. We're going to see a lot of change happening. There's going to be a shift because now there's going to be focus areas within the continent where people actually going to create solutions for their problems. Like I believe African problems are not a one size fits all. So when we educate, we give room for people to actually think about what they've learned, for them to actually exercise what they've learned, and also for them to come up with ideas that are actually going to bring change on the continent. So that is the other main reason that I really want focus on education to be really put out there in Africa. And also there should be a certain, I would say there should also be resources available. And I would like to really, again, appreciate the Arab blockchain community for actually coming up with this initiative and bringing people together and saying, let's give ourselves a voice, because we should also think about the resources that are being poured into the educational sector in Africa, right? How much resources or what types of resources are we really bringing to the African people to educate them? I actually feel it's not enough. It's not enough for me to stand out here all the time and talk about blockchain with very, very minimal impact. So we need to rethink about the resources that should actually be available for people like you and I that are pushing this agenda to be able to reach the people that we need to know about these things. And I'm not saying everyone in Africa is going to become an innovator. No. I'm not saying everyone in Africa is going to start a blockchain-based business, but even the users of these platforms that we're building, the users of these solutions that we're building, they need to know why they're using it. That is why you found that there's been a lot of speculation going around. There's been a lot of trading going around, and there's been a lot of multi-level marketing schemes that have come about. A lot of people have fallen prey to these kinds of initiatives. Why? Because there's a lack of proper education, there's a lack of proper information, and there's a lack of information that is actually coming out of the continent that can help them. You and I can only try as much without the necessary resources to be able to reach these people. I'll give you in the context of South Africa. So like I'm actually based in South Africa, so I'll try and give you this context. There was a time that a lot of South Africans had fallen prey to a lot of multi-level marketing scams. And there was millions, just recently, actually, there was one scam that was being ran called MIT, I think MIT Trader or something, where millions of South African rands were lost by the people, and the founders actually fled out of the country, but they were brought back, and I think they were brought to book. Why do you think people would fall for such scams? It's because they believe that I'm going to buy Bitcoin. And when I buy Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, I'm going to get very rich at this particular time. And it's the most ignorant people that get burnt in the process, right? The people that have the money and the people that have the know-how would rarely get burnt by such things because they might know their entry and exit strategies when it comes to being involved with these kinds of things. But an ordinary person out there who has been told by someone that there's an opportunity here where you can maybe make a certain percentage of money from whatever you're going to put in. There have been people who have gone to the banks to get loans to invest in these scams or pyramid schemes or multi-level marketing schemes. There was one testimonial that I read of a lady that took her pension money. So she receives this amount, a huge sum, after working for maybe over 30 years. So I don't know, she works for over 30 years. She gets to pension age, and she gets this pension money. Maybe it's not all that much to sustain her this because of the high living costs in the country. And there's this opportunity that comes by to say, you know what, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, this is the new thing. People are making a lot of money. So join my network, put in this money. She put in everything, and she lost a lot of money. She actually lost all the money. And now she was grieving. So that's also another important reason why we should focus on education, to protect the people that do not know anything, to also protect the vulnerable that are trying to make a living, an honest living. There are opportunities in this. So once we show them where the right opportunities are and how they can get involved, we actually begin to avoid certain things from happening. And also another important factor why I would say education is really important is especially for the youth, right? I feel like the youth, once they're equipped with this kind of knowledge, they will be able to now participate, not only participate on the continent, but be able to participate in the global economy, because now they understand what is going on. They'll be able to find partnerships, they'll be able to collaborate with like-minded people, and they'll be able to actually position themselves, because I feel like certain jobs are fading out. We've been in this situation with COVID, right? A lot of people were affected, a lot of job losses, a lot of countries were affected. The whole world was affected by COVID. I came to realize that COVID for the blockchain space was actually something that was a catalyst. And I tried to use that to my advantage to educate people and tell them, you know what, this is not the only way out there. There's actually other things you can get involved with. You can actually learn about this and you can participate. You can work from anywhere. So those that were doing jobs that required them to go into an office actually lost jobs. Those that were doing jobs that required them to actually be in contact with people lost a lot of jobs. families were affected. So it actually gives them an open mind to other possibilities. If this doesn't work out, as a young person, how do I position myself, right? If this job, there's now, I'll say, there's a lot of online learning, right? Children, for example, in South Africa currently, children do not go to school each and every single day because of the COVID pandemic. And you find that some teachers have lost jobs because there is hardly need for all the children to be in school at the same time. So they've divided them into days. They either go to school 2 days a week or go to school 3 days a week. And some of the children are actually learning online. So there's now a shift, right? We cannot avoid the digital revolution as Africans. We cannot avoid that. So we have to actually push when it comes to education. This will lead to skills development, right? This will lead to innovations. This will lead to African unicorns. I believe we cannot always be users as Africans. We cannot always be end users as Africans. We need to step up, but we can't step up when there's things out there that we don't know that we need to learn. So I would normally say, look, people don't want to learn about something that they don't think they need. So when they know that they actually need to learn about this, they will come forth and say, I want to be part of this. And also there's some other things that sometimes people don't know where to get the information, or they don't have access to resources that give information. So that is why also us working on initiatives that include people that do not have access to internet, that do not have access to maybe smartphones, and those that just have budget smartphones, right? Coming up with solutions, building on solutions that are mobile first. For example, and I'm just going to make reference to the Celo blockchain. It's put into consideration the user with a budget smartphone. You know, that in itself is inclusive. There are also solutions out there that are coming up that are inclusive, that work with USSD, and this is something that I've always wanted to see. So that if I have to tell maybe my grandmother in the village about blockchain technology, if I had to educate her, I don't have to go into details. I would normally just tell her, you can use this platform to achieve this thing using your feature phone. So we should put an emphasis on education, and we should actually, we should put an emphasis, we should implement educational initiatives within our own right. You don't have to run a whole educational campaign, but within our communities as a challenge to, we all don't have to be part of the bigger picture, but as a challenge to all of us in this space, especially on the continent, it's just something going back to our roots, to tradition. You know, we've learned things from, like I always say, Africa has actually thrived on oral tradition when it comes to culture for a very long time. The things that I know now about my culture were actually passed on from my great-great-grandparents to my parents, and now I'll be passing it on to my children. So if we could also adopt that kind of culture and talk to people about it, talk to the people around us about it, you never know whose life you might impact. There was a time in my life when I was learning about this technology, I was privileged to be able to educate myself, but the time I was learning about this technology, I would talk about it all the time. I'll talk about the changes I thought this technology would actually bring to Africa. I was very optimistic about a lot of change. I was optimistic about change in the educational sector because of a lot of nepotism that happens in Africa, right? There are a lot of people out there who sit in positions that they do not qualify for because why? There's no system that actually properly verifies qualifications. And people, there's a lot of corruption when it comes to qualifications. So there are people who are rightfully supposed to be in those positions, but they're denied because they're very porous systems that can be easily tweaked at random whenever people who are in a position of authority feel like they should tamper with that information. So I was very optimistic when I looked at blockchain, and every time I would meet up with my friends, I'll talk about blockchain out. And they actually started saying, oh my God, here she comes again. She's going to be talking about this. But now they've started to see they've started to see the change that I was talking about. They've started to see the impact of this technology, not only in my life, but in the lives of those people around me that I've actually empowered and taught about this. So collectively, I would say, let us put a lot of energy before we can, let's build solutions, yes, but even as we build those solutions, let's have education as part and parcel of whatever we're doing in this space, especially for Africa. So I don't know how, if there are any questions from, I'd like to take questions from participants on the chat, if there are any questions that you might have. I just wanted to share that part with everyone. I did not have a presentation for very obvious reasons, because I did not want to talk about things that were not close to heart at this particular time, being given this platform. Thank you so much for this opportunity that you're giving to people to come together and interact and learn from each other. Thank you.